Over the years, Sam Novak's life had been a tapestry of discipline and order. A former military man turned security consultant, he built his company, Novak Security Consultants, with precision and integrity at its core. His no-nonsense approach to work mirrored his personal life. Sam believed in accountability, both in himself and those around him, and this unwavering standard had earned him a reputation as a dependable leader. Yet it was this very sense of order that made him particularly attuned to changes, even subtle ones, in his environment. Before launching his firm, Sam had spent a decade in the military, where he honed his analytical skills and developed a deep-seated appreciation for structure. Those years shaped him, not just professionally but personally. Returning to civilian life, he carried with him a commitment to excellence and a sharp eye for inconsistencies, a quality that would later serve him in ways he could not have anticipated. Sam Novak returned to his office on a typical Tuesday afternoon, settling in after lunch. He jotted down some thoughts on two ongoing projects, ideas that had come to him over his meal. Stepping out, he asked his secretary, Layla, to transcribe the notes. She was, as usual, mid-conversation on the phone. Without breaking her rhythm, she acknowledged him, promising to finish the task in half an hour. Then she casually mentioned she was speaking with Dylan, Sam's wife, and her daughter. Layla often chatted with Dylan during lunch breaks, something Sam tolerated without complaint. Dylan's part-time library job left her free on certain days, and Sam trusted Layla's efficiency regardless of personal calls. Returning to his office, Sam focused on his afternoon workload. The morning had been spent reviewing project updates at Novak Security Consultants, his firm. While most tasks were on track, two account representatives were falling short, disorganized, defensive, and prone to excuses. Sam detested dishonesty, finding it far more intolerable than mere incompetence. If they admitted to struggling, he'd reassign them to better-suited roles. Instead, their lack of accountability tested his patience. After addressing emails to maintain client relationships, Sam finally turned to the centerpiece of his afternoon, drafting plans for a security overhaul at an aging downtown hospital. Built in the 1930s, its last upgrade had been in the 1970s. He'd brainstormed preliminary ideas at home, saving them on a thumb drive. However, as he reached for it, he realized it wasn't in his briefcase. A quick mental review confirmed he'd left it on his dresser that morning. Frustrated by his oversight, he grabbed his coat to retrieve it. As he rushed past Layla, announcing his errand, her response was barely registered. Outside, Sam realized he'd forgotten his car keys in his office. Retracing his steps, he heard Layla's tense voice on the phone, urging someone to hurry. She seemed startled when he reappeared to retrieve his keys, brushing off the encounter with a joke about his forgetfulness. Driving home, Sam replayed Layla's tone, curious about the he she had mentioned. At home, Dylan appeared flustered, claiming she'd been doing laundry. Her reddened face and hurried demeanor caught Sam's attention, but he brushed it off. Heading upstairs, he found the thumb drive on the dresser. The unmade bed and laundry hamper, half filled with clothes, suggested Dylan had been working on household chores. Yet, a minor inconsistency gave him pause. The toilet seat was up. Dylan had long been vocal about her dislike for this particular habit of his. After using the bathroom, he put the seat down, noting her apparent oversight. On his way out, Sam kissed Dylan's cheek. "Sorry about the seat," he said lightly. She seemed momentarily startled before recovering. "Lucky for you, I didn't notice," she teased. Something about her hesitation lingered in his mind as he left for work. When Sam stepped into the garage to get in his car, a faint but strange odor caught his attention. He glanced toward the workbench, suspecting a spill, but found nothing amiss. Shrugging it off, he drove back to the office. On his return, he noticed Layla studying him for a moment, though she said nothing. His inbox had filled in his brief absence, so he dove into clearing it out. Junk emails were deleted swiftly, but many messages required immediate attention. The bulk of the issues stemmed from the same account reps whose sloppy work created constant headaches. Sam resolved again to address their behavior. Their carelessness was frustrating enough, but the lies they used to cover their tracks were intolerable. Later, Layla handed him a shopping list from Dylan and reminded him about the evening's homeowners association meeting. Sam groaned. 2 hours of petty disputes and wasted time. After a frustrating day, he returned home with just enough time to eat a quick meal Dylan had prepared, change into casual clothes, and attend the meeting. It dragged on for 2.5 hours, achieving nothing. When they got home, they put the day behind them and enjoyed a tender night together before falling asleep. The next day, Wednesday, was relatively uneventful. Sam made some progress on the hospital security project, but had to deal with a major client issue in the suburbs. A recently installed surveillance system wasn't functioning properly because the account rep overseeing the installation failed to follow the system test checklist. Sam identified the error instantly, a misplaced plug, but fumed at the negligence as he drove back. Dylan worked her afternoon shift at the library, so Sam took his time getting home. His thoughts wandered to the minor oddities of the past day. At work, the recurring problems with his team weighed on him, and at home, several small things didn't quite add up. The odor in the garage lingered in his memory, though it was gone now. Once home, he decided to be productive and folded the bed linens in the dryer. Oddly, there was only one set, the sheets from their bed. Dylan was usually energy conscious and wouldn't run a small load. After putting the sheets away, he noticed another anomaly. The toilet seat in their bathroom was down. He distinctly remembered leaving it up the previous morning. Stranger still, Dylan had made the bed Tuesday morning only to strip it later for washing, something she never did. The inconsistencies unsettled him. As someone who valued precision, these small anomalies felt like red flags. He tried to brush off the unease, but it lingered. Sitting down with a beer, he dozed off until Dylan returned with Chinese takeout. They ate in near silence. Sam had intended to ask her about the oddities, but fatigue dulled his focus. They cleaned up, cuddled on the couch, and went to bed. The next morning, Sam woke feeling off. He didn't mention it to Dylan, knowing she would worry excessively. Instead, he took a couple of aspirin and went through his routine. By the time he arrived at the office, the headache had faded slightly, but a nagging unease about the small anomalies at home remained in the back of his mind. He managed to handle some routine tasks, but avoided the more demanding hospital project. By late morning, his condition worsened. He felt feverish and unsteady. Layla began checking on him frequently, asking if he was okay. Brushing off her concerns, he insisted he was just tired. For lunch, he opted for light noodles and broth, but even that didn't help for long. By mid-afternoon, he felt too weak to continue. Stepping into the hall to get Layla's attention, he barely made it before she jumped up in alarm. "Sam, you look awful," she exclaimed, touching his forehead. "You're burning up. I'm taking you home." She hesitated briefly, glanced at the clock, then added, "Wait in reception. I'll join you in a minute." Sam insisted he could drive, but she quickly shut that down, calling Timothy, a colleague, to help escort him. Timothy got him partway down the hall, but excused himself to lock his office, leaving Sam leaning against the wall. In that moment, Sam overheard Layla's tense voice on the phone. "Dylan, listen. Sam's really sick, and I'm bringing him home now. Don't freak out. Just deal with it." Her tone turned sharper. "Tell him to leave. I don't care what he thinks. Tough luck." The next thing Sam remembered was being helped into an unfamiliar car by Timothy and Roy, the security guard, before passing out. When he came to again, Layla and Timothy were guiding him into his house, where Dylan was waiting, visibly distressed. "We should take him to the hospital," Dylan fretted, her voice shaking. "Nonsense," Layla replied firmly. "It's just a bad flu. He needs rest, not a trip to the ER. Let's settle him on the couch. He's too weak to manage the stairs." Sam vaguely recalled Layla giving him something to drink before she left, promising to check on him later. As he drifted into restless sleep, a sudden realization struck him. Gaultier. The strange odor he'd noticed earlier was men's cologne. He mumbled the name but was too weak for anyone to hear. Half awake later, he overheard Dylan on the phone in the kitchen. Her voice was low but firm. "Trevor, I'm done. Sam's here and he needs me. I'm not sneaking off to meet you at some motel. This is over. Today was the last straw. You were a distraction, not some grand romance. I don't care about your threats. Sam is nothing like the guy you bullied in high school. If you try anything, he'll destroy you." Sam lay motionless as the call ended, overwhelmed by the implications. Moments later, he heard Layla's voice, calm but resolute. "Good riddance. Should have ended this months ago." "Mom, enough," Dylan replied. "It's over now, and Sam doesn't know. Let's leave it at that." When the conversation subsided, Sam croaked weakly, bringing them both rushing to his side. Dylan asked if their talking had woken him, but he feigned ignorance, blaming a sore throat and cough. They seemed relieved and quickly fetched him something sweet and cold to drink. Sam sipped the juice, his mind swirling with fragmented thoughts. For now, he chose silence, unsure of how or when he'd address what he had learned. Sam's stomach churned as he spent most of Friday in the downstairs bathroom, his body racked with relentless waves of sickness. With nothing substantial to eat in over a day, even the meager noodles he'd managed to stomach came back up, followed by dry heaves that left him exhausted. By noon, Dylan had left for her library shift, and Layla returned to the office, leaving him alone in his misery. The isolation gave him time to think, though not by choice. Between bouts of retching, his thoughts drifted to recent revelations about Dylan, Layla, and Trevor. Clarity began to form, piece by piece. Trevor's cologne, the misplaced toilet seat, the stripped sheets, each was a puzzle piece that now clicked into place. Layla's phone calls had tipped them off, protecting their affair. Sam realized how blind he'd been to the signs, even without hearing Dylan's damning conversation with Trevor days earlier. By afternoon, his stomach settled enough for clear fluids. A few sips revived him, and he risked venturing out of the bathroom, grabbing a book to distract his mind. When Dylan returned early from work, she was visibly relieved to see him upright. She explained that the doctor recommended rest and fluids, and antibiotics wouldn't help with the virus. Sam, still weak but mentally sharp, said little. He now fully understood the betrayal and its players. Dylan fussed over him, urging him to move upstairs for comfort. But Sam refused, unable to bear the thought of lying in the same bed where Trevor had intruded on their marriage. He insisted on staying on the couch, claiming it was fine. Later that evening, he asked if Layla would be coming by the next day. Dylan explained that her mother had plans, a nature hike and dinner with her boyfriend. Sam cut her off, insisting she cancel. His voice was calm but firm, leaving no room for argument. Dylan hesitated but made the call. Her voice hushed as she relayed his request to Layla. Sam overheard her concern. "Mom, you'd better come. I think he knows." Feigning sleep for the rest of the evening, Sam replayed everything in his mind. As night fell, he rejected Dylan's offer again to move upstairs. Instead, he listened as the phone rang, followed by Dylan shouting from another room, "No, you idiot! Never again! Screw you!" The call ended with the sound of her slamming the phone. By Saturday morning, Sam felt slightly stronger after a long shower, though the emotional weight lingered. Dressed and refreshed, he stood quietly in the bedroom doorway, observing Dylan asleep. She still stirred something primal in him, but the emotions now were a mix of habit and biology. His mind, however, lingered on Trevor. He recalled him as one of the high school jocks who used to bully him, a man he once despised. That old anger flared, sharp and hot, but he pushed it down. For now, he decided, there would be no confrontation. Like a seasoned general holding back before the decisive moment, Sam tucked his emotions away. Not yet. Sam changed into a pair of jeans and a casual shirt, opting for comfort. After checking the doctor's suggested recovery schedule, he settled on toast with a thin spread of jelly for breakfast, skipping his usual coffee for tea. The clock read 10:35 a.m. He left a brief note for Dylan. Back by noon, he wanted to confront her and Layla together, avoiding drawn-out questions in the meantime. Driving aimlessly, Sam's thoughts churned. Life, like work, required accountability. Mistakes happened, but lying to cover them up was intolerable. Dylan had betrayed him, violated their marriage, and lied to mask her actions. Layla had enabled her, complicit in the deception. Could he forgive them? Could he trust them again? He didn't have those answers yet, but he was determined to get the truth. At exactly noon, Sam pulled into the driveway behind Layla's car. Inside, he found Dylan and Layla seated at the kitchen table. They fell silent as he entered. Pouring himself a cautious cup of coffee, Sam sat across from them. "Thanks for your care these past few days," he began, his tone even. Layla smiled nervously, but Dylan sat rigid, anticipating more. "Here's the situation," he continued. "I believe my wife, Dylan, was sleeping with Trevor Brooks in our bed this past Tuesday and Thursday. Layla, you acted as their lookout. Am I wrong?" Dylan's face froze in shock, while Layla flinched, accidentally knocking her coffee cup to the floor. The two scrambled to clean up the mess, stalling the conversation, but Sam waited patiently. Once they resumed their seats, Dylan opened her mouth to protest, but he raised a hand to silence her. "It's my turn to speak," he said firmly. "Dylan, Tuesday morning you made the bed, something you never do if you're about to strip it for washing. When I returned that afternoon, I smelled men's cologne in the garage. It wasn't mine. Afterward, you were doing laundry, but the dryer held only our bed sheets, nothing else. Why? To remove evidence, perhaps." He didn't wait for a reply. "Layla, I overheard you that morning warning Dylan to hurry because I was on my way. Thursday, it was the same, telling her to get him out of there." Dylan shook her head, denying everything. "Sam, this is crazy. I've never cheated on you. There are explanations for all of it." Sam ignored her protests. "Dylan, no more lies. If you want this marriage to have any chance, tell the truth. Did you sleep with him? Did you use protection?" Tears welled in Dylan's eyes, but she stayed silent. Layla wept openly. Sam studied Dylan, noticing the familiar calculating expression he'd seen countless times on dishonest employees. Finally, she relented. Trevor was my boyfriend in high school, Dylan admitted. We were on and off through college, and while I knew he wasn't good for me, he kept pulling me back. After graduation, I ended things for good. He married someone else and had kids. I thought he was out of my life until he reached out a few months ago. At first, it was just nostalgic conversations. It wasn't supposed to go further. Sam's voice was icy. But it did. Dylan hesitated, her words faltering. Yes, she whispered. It did. I don't know why. I was stupid. It started a few months ago. I ended it, Sam. I swear I ended it. Sam leaned back, his face unreadable. Inside, his anger burned, but he kept it contained. You didn't end it. Circumstances did. And Layla, you enabled this. You lied to me. Both of you did. Layla began apologizing, but Sam cut her off. Save it. I'm not interested in excuses. He stood, pushing his chair back with controlled force. We'll finish this conversation later, after I decide what happens next. He walked out, leaving them in stunned silence. In his mind, he resolved that the next steps wouldn't be about saving anyone's feelings. They'd be about determining whether trust, once shattered, could ever be rebuilt. Over 6 years ago, life brought Dylan back into Sam's world, and he was astonished by how time and life experiences had shaped her. She exuded strength and confidence, qualities that reignited his love for her. When she accepted his marriage proposal, it felt like a dream, and Sam had poured every ounce of sincerity into their vows. Months ago, as their high school reunion approached, Dylan had hoped Sam would attend with her. But he had resisted, dismissing such events as shallow gatherings full of insincere posturing, something he'd witnessed at reunions of others. Dylan had felt disappointed, believing that if he truly loved and respected her wishes, he would have accompanied her. Looking back, she admitted that her feelings might have been childish, but they were genuine. At the reunion, Dylan found herself enjoying the company of her former classmates. Unlike Sam, who had felt like an outsider during their school years, she had been part of the popular crowd and had fond memories of those times. Trevor, an old flame, was there too, attending alone and without a wedding ring. Although she wore hers, it didn't seem to deter him. Trevor made a bold attempt to rekindle something with her, which she initially laughed off. However, his persistence over the following months wore her down. Finally, she agreed to meet him for lunch, which led to dinner at a local lounge. Though she knew it was wrong, Dylan admitted she concealed it from Sam. Over drinks that night, Trevor made his moves, and while she claimed things only went as far as brief physical contact, she acknowledged how easily she'd succumbed to the excitement and thrill. She justified her actions to herself at the time, thinking it wasn't a true betrayal. Returning home, she avoided Sam, rationalizing her ability to keep the affair hidden. Her guilt was momentarily eclipsed by her confidence that Sam's unwavering trust in her would prevent him from suspecting anything. Dylan confessed that the affair continued. Trevor's calls persisted, and she agreed to see him again. Each encounter left her grappling with guilt, yet she found herself drawn to the allure of danger and forbidden excitement. She even confided in her mother, Layla, enlisting her help to cover for the meetings. Layla, torn between protecting her daughter and safeguarding her son-in-law, reluctantly went along with the deception. Layla defended her complicity, explaining that her primary fear was that Sam might discover the affair and act out in a way that could ruin his life. Her intention, she claimed, was to protect everyone involved, though the weight of the secret deeply troubled her. Dylan eventually broke things off with Trevor, citing the final straw as his suggestion that she leave Sam, who was ill at the time, to meet him at a motel. She insisted she had ended the relationship and regretted her weakness, which she attributed to the history she shared with Trevor. Dylan declared her love for Sam and her desire to mend their relationship. She promised to attend counseling or take any steps necessary to make amends. Layla pleaded for Sam's forgiveness, expressing that her actions stemmed from being trapped in an impossible situation, caught between her loyalty to her daughter and her affection for Sam. As the two women looked to Sam for his response, he grappled with his feelings of betrayal. Layla's silence during Dylan's deception stung deeply. Dylan's confession, with its mix of rationalizations and apologies, left him wrestling with whether forgiveness was truly possible. The weight of the decision lay heavy on him, and both women awaited his next move. What a mess. Sam felt an icy numbness settle over him as he watched his life unravel. He knew it was time to face the hard truth and bring things to an end. Dylan, he began, his voice steady but cold. You cheated and then lied to my face. I know this started at the reunion and has carried on for 3 months. You've been involved with Trevor the whole time, and you're still lying to me now, pretending otherwise. You can't keep a 3-month affair alive with half measures. Spare me the denials. I see it for what it is. And your mother? She betrayed me too, lying to cover for you. I've been made a fool of by both of you. Dylan couldn't meet his gaze, burying her face in her hands, while Layla, ever composed, tried to reason with him. What are you planning to do, Sam? Layla asked, her tone pleading. Please don't make a rash decision. Think this through. Sam's response was sharp. I won't rush into anything, but I won't let it drag out either. The betrayal is bad enough, but the constant lying to cover it up? That's what makes it unforgivable. I can't trust either of you again. I'll be contacting a divorce attorney next week. Since I don't have direct evidence of adultery, I'll pursue other grounds, but if you fight me, Dylan, I'll take it further. I'll make Trevor's involvement public and I'll sue him for alienation of affection. If necessary, I'll have investigators combing the neighborhood, questioning neighbors about his visits. I'll dig into his work records to see if he came here during work hours. If you cooperate, though, I'll agree to a no-fault divorce and fair alimony. After all, you were a good wife for 6 years, and that means something. I'll give you a month to move out. I assume you'll stay with Layla. Layla nodded reluctantly. Yes, of course, but Sam, can't you give it more time? You and Dylan had a good marriage for 6 years. She made a mistake, a terrible one, but she's learned her lesson. She'll never do it again. Never, Dylan echoed faintly. Sam's expression hardened. You still don't understand. There's no way back from this. You lied, even after I gave you a chance to come clean. I'll never believe another word either of you says. And with that, the decision was made. The beginning of the end. Sam moved into the guest room upstairs that night. By Monday morning, he was at a clinic getting tested for STDs. He didn't trust where Trevor might have been during those months of betrayal and urged Dylan to get tested as well, though he doubted she'd follow through. Her choices were no longer his concern. His results came back clean, though follow-ups would be necessary for HIV. Feeling a sense of responsibility, he decided someone else needed to know. That same day, he called Caroline, Trevor's wife. Her initial reaction was suspicious, especially when he wouldn't disclose his reason for calling. She reluctantly agreed to meet him at an IHOP near the interstate, emphasizing she had only an hour before picking up her kids from daycare. When Caroline arrived, Sam noted how different she was from Dylan. She had a striking beauty, her dark Irish features accentuated by jet black hair and milky white skin, but there was a toughness in her demeanor that set her apart. After they were seated, something she mentioned unsettled him. You were home when I called, Sam said bluntly. Why do you have your kids in daycare if you're home all day? Big social life? Caroline laughed at his audacity. Well, aren't you the nosy amateur social worker? My kids are at Mrs. Jones's for half the day so I can run my home-based graphics business. I work while they're there, and when they're home, it's full-time mom duty. I adjust my schedule as needed. Trevor prefers me working from home, probably worried I'll meet someone like him if I'm out in the world. Her retort caught him off guard, and he couldn't help but nod, satisfied with her explanation. She wasn't neglecting her kids after all. Now, she said, her tone firm, about your call. How do you know all this about Trevor? Do you have proof? Sam laid it all out, the affair, his suspicions, and what he had overheard. Caroline listened without interruption, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she simply nodded. I'm not surprised, she admitted. I've suspected him of cheating before, several times actually, especially after the twins were born. I nearly left him 2 years ago when I caught him, but I stayed for the kids. They were too young for daycare, and I had no way to support myself back then. Trevor's always been more of an absentee dad anyway. Without concrete proof, I couldn't do much. Her words hung in the air, a reflection of the tangled mess of betrayals that now connected their lives. Caroline had no illusions about achieving an amicable divorce. She explained that 2 years ago, she had started her business to gain financial independence, preparing for a future where she might need to stand on her own. When Sam shared that he had recently undergone STD tests, she mentioned having done the same when Trevor's behavior first raised suspicions. She agreed it was time to repeat the tests. Sam acknowledged that one reason he had contacted her was to suggest testing, but there was more. He explained that if his divorce with Dylan became contentious, he might have to call Caroline as a witness regarding Trevor's weekday activities. This would inevitably put her name into public records, linking her to the case. Caroline, however, seemed unfazed. She reasoned that her young children wouldn't grasp the implications, and she had little concern about public attention. She even remarked that with Trevor's pattern of behavior, it wouldn't be surprising if an angry spouse eventually retaliated against him violently. To her, it was only a matter of time before his recklessness caught up with him, potentially exposing everything anyway. Sam couldn't help but admire her strength. Caroline carried herself with an air of resilience, focusing on protecting her children despite the mess surrounding Trevor. She struck him as a tough, practical person, and he wondered why she seemed so familiar. The conversation turned to Trevor's character. Caroline didn't hold back, describing him as a predator without a conscience, someone who would destroy lives in pursuit of his desires. She speculated that he was systematically pursuing women from their high school class, relying on his lingering reputation as the charming quarterback. Though Caroline admitted she wanted a divorce, she lamented the lack of concrete evidence to support her case in court. There were rumors and circumstantial signs, but nothing actionable. She was resigned to the situation, though her frustration was evident. Caroline even reflected darkly on how much simpler life would be if something, or someone, removed Trevor from the picture. She explained that Trevor's deep-seated paranoia about potential retaliation had driven him to secure extensive life insurance policies, even including a double indemnity clause for violent death. Ironically, his fear of consequences revealed a rare glimmer of concern for his family, as the policies would leave them financially secure. As they prepared to leave, Caroline mused about wishing for some force, a natural disaster, an act of fate, or even a vengeful husband, to take Trevor out of their lives permanently. She believed that without him, her children and others would be better off. Sam cautioned her to be careful what she wished for, leaving her momentarily thoughtful. While they walked to Caroline's car, she studied Sam closely. A flicker of recognition crossed her face as she recalled him from high school. She remembered him as the tall, quiet boy who had been mercilessly picked on, yet had stepped in to protect her during a confrontation at a school dance. Though she had been whisked away by friends that night, she had never forgotten his courage. Sam, too, remembered the incident clearly. After helping her escape the unwanted attention of a football player named Alistair, Sam had faced the consequences alone. Alistair and his friends had beaten him up, and while they avoided punishment due to their status as athletes, Sam had been suspended for the rest of the semester. He explained that the situation had pushed him to enlist in the military before graduation, where he found discipline and direction. Caroline asked about Alistair's fate, and Sam recounted how shortly after their encounter, Alistair had been arrested for pills possession. Federal authorities had been involved, and justice had been served, proving that sometimes karma did its job. As Caroline listened, she seemed moved by Sam's story. Before parting, she gave him a light kiss on the cheek, expressing her gratitude and admiration for his bravery back then. Sam watched her drive away, thinking about the unexpected twists life had taken. Returning to his office, Sam took decisive action on unrelated matters. He terminated 2 underperforming employees, ensuring their severance was handled properly. Their records were airtight, leaving no room for disputes. In that moment, Sam reflected on the importance of clean breaks, not just in his professional life, but also in the personal turmoil he was navigating. Sam began the process by meeting with his division managers to identify potential candidates for promotions. He emphasized that the decisions would be their responsibility. They knew the team better than he did, and he made it clear he wouldn't promote anyone he didn't trust or know personally. He instructed them to make recommendations through a committee process, warning that they would be accountable if their choices failed to meet expectations. Afterward, Sam made some adjustments within his company. He contacted the HR department and arranged to transfer Layla to a suburban warehouse facility, where she would take over for a retiring office manager. When Layla anxiously came into his office to hear his decision, Sam explained the situation bluntly. Though he acknowledged her value as an employee, he expressed his loss of trust in her personal loyalty, a breach he couldn't overlook. He informed her of the transfer, which included a slight salary increase and potential for further promotion. He wished her well and ended the conversation curtly. Layla apologized, but Sam was unmoved, tired of hearing empty regrets. Before the transfer, Sam ensured her new supervisor was prepared to help her transition smoothly. As far as he knew, the manager was unaware of the underlying reasons for the move. Sam highlighted Layla's skills and past contributions to reinforce her reputation professionally, even as he distanced himself personally. On Monday evening, Sam consulted a lawyer who could accommodate his busy schedule with evening hours. By the next day, the divorce papers were filed. The lawyer assured him the process could proceed quickly if Dylan didn't contest it, and Sam was confident there would be no resistance. A couple of weeks later, Sam hired movers to pack Dylan's belongings. Most of the items were smaller, personal purchases she had accumulated over the years. He left her in charge of the move, avoiding the house that weekend to spare himself the emotional strain of her presence. The process was difficult, but he focused on moving forward. Weeks after the separation, Sam received an unexpected call from Caroline. She was checking in and asked how he was managing everything. He shared updates about Dylan moving out, Layla's transfer, and the divorce proceedings. Caroline remarked on how composed he seemed, noting his methodical approach. Sam explained that when faced with unpleasant tasks, he preferred to make a list and tackle it step by step. Caroline teased that he seemed close to wrapping up his list, with both Dylan and Layla physically removed from his life and bachelorhood on the horizon. Sam admitted there were still a few loose ends to address. When she pressed, asking if she was included in his plans, Sam jokingly flipped through papers, pretending to search for her name. She laughed off his playful response, saying it was better to be on the list late than not at all. In his methodical fashion, Sam continued working through his list. Using a pocket notepad instead of digital tools to avoid leaving a trail, he ticked off each item with precision. 2 appraisers evaluated the house, and their reports were sent to Dylan and her lawyer. Once they agreed on an average value, Sam secured a second loan to cover the equity difference, sending Dylan her share in a cashier's check. He dismantled their large bed, carefully inspecting the frame for serial numbers or branding. Anything traceable was removed or sanded off before the bed was stored in his garage. The mattress and box spring were treated the same way, ensuring no connections to him remained. After receiving the court's ruling on temporary alimony, Sam calculated the retroactive payments from their separation date and sent Dylan a cashier's check for the full amount owed. He then set up an automatic transfer for future payments directly to her savings account, completing yet another item on his list. With every task completed, Sam took another step toward closing this chapter of his life. Each checkmark symbolized progress, a deliberate move toward reclaiming control and independence in the aftermath of betrayal. Sam reached out to Caroline after some time, updating her on his progress. He jokingly mentioned she had climbed to item number 43 on his infamous list, a lighthearted acknowledgement of their growing connection. He shared details about settling his financial obligations with Dylan, ensuring everything aligned with their legal agreements. Caroline asked how Dylan was doing. Sam admitted he wasn't entirely sure, as their interactions had been limited to a single meeting at the lawyer's office. When she inquired about any lingering doubts or regrets, Sam reflected on his feelings. While he regretted the outcome and mourned the 6 years he had invested in their marriage, he recognized that trust, once broken, couldn't be restored. Despite still loving Dylan, he knew there was no way to rebuild what had been lost. Caroline expressed sympathy for Sam, confessing she envied his ability to trust someone so deeply. It had been so long since she'd trusted Trevor that she'd almost forgotten what it felt like. Their conversation trailed off into silence, both lost in thought, before they exchanged goodbyes with a promise to stay in touch. 2 months later, Sam and Caroline met at a park. They walked together, their conversation weaving through lighthearted memories of high school. Sam admitted to having crushes on a few classmates, and Caroline teased him for not realizing some of those girls might have reciprocated his interest. When he asked if she would have dated him back then, she admitted she probably wouldn't have, at least not until she realized the shallow nature of the popular crowd she had aspired to join. However, after he stood up for her at the dance, her perspective shifted, and she began to see him differently. She had searched for him at school afterward, but hadn't known his name to ask about him. As they strolled, Caroline observed how much Sam had changed. He admitted he'd been working on his fitness, shedding extra weight and regaining the strength he'd had during his military service. Caroline playfully chided him for being almost too fit, joking that he needed a little more softness for comfort. Their banter carried an easy warmth, and when they parted, Caroline surprised him with a sweet, brief kiss. Sam had wanted to kiss her but refrained, worried he might lose control of his emotions. Her gesture felt like a gift, carefully balanced between affection and restraint. Weeks passed, and Sam neared the finalization of his divorce. One evening, he called Caroline to ask if Trevor was around. She replied that Trevor was away for a couple of weeks, likely preoccupied with someone else. Sam suggested going out for dinner, but Caroline declined, explaining that it wasn't a good time. She promised, however, that she'd be open to meeting in about 3 weeks and asked him to call again. When Sam followed up, he offered to cover the cost of a sitter, considering her situation. Caroline seemed touched by the gesture and informed him that Mrs. Jones, her neighbor, had offered to keep the twins overnight if needed. While she didn't plan on taking advantage of that, she expressed enthusiasm about seeing him again. She mentioned that Mrs. Jones suspected she was keeping a secret lover, largely because she seemed happier lately. Caroline assured Sam that her neighbor's assumptions were based on nothing concrete, though she appreciated the sentiment. During their dinner, Caroline turned the tables, asking if Sam had been feeling happier. He admitted he wasn't sure, but acknowledged that their conversations and meetings had brought him a sense of calm. She asked where she ranked on his list now, and he jokingly placed her at item number 9, signaling her growing importance in his life. Later, as they talked in her living room, Sam couldn't help but ask questions about her children. Caroline noticed his curiosity and pressed him about it. Sam explained that he had always wanted children, but Dylan had resisted, insisting they enjoy life as a couple without the constraints of parenting. He suspected Dylan had viewed children as an inconvenience, a limitation on their freedom and spontaneity. His wistful tone revealed a longing he had carried quietly for years, a desire to experience fatherhood and the joy that came with it. Their conversation deepened, leaving both of them reflecting on their past choices and how those choices had shaped their lives. Sam glanced out the window, his thoughts momentarily distant. Caroline's voice broke the silence, reminding him of a conversation from his marriage. Dylan had never wavered in her resistance to having children, even after 6 years. Sam had eventually stopped bringing it up, realizing that if she didn't want children by then, she likely never would. And he wasn't sure what kind of mother she'd have been anyway. Caroline shifted the subject, contrasting her own experience. Life with Trevor, she reflected, hadn't been the carefree adventure it might have seemed. It had depended far too much on the kind of partner you had. Her tone sharpened as she asked Sam why he was there. Did he have feelings for her? Was he sitting there, aroused by her presence? Caught off guard but honest, Sam admitted he found her attractive. However, he quickly added that his intentions were honorable. He wanted a friendship, not an affair, and he also wanted to get to know her children if she was open to it. Caroline hesitated, acknowledging the risks. Her kids might inadvertently mention Uncle Sam to Trevor, and she couldn't take that chance. For their safety, she asked him to keep things casual, conversations and occasional walks. Sam agreed, understanding her caution. He wanted no connection to Trevor beyond what already existed. As he prepared to leave, Caroline stopped him. She turned away and began lifting her top, revealing pale, unmarked skin at first. But then the bruises appeared, blue and purple blotches along her lower back and sides. She explained that Trevor's violence was infrequent and controlled, his open hand leaving bruises rather than inflicting severe injury. However, the mistreatment had escalated recently, especially after Dylan ended their affair. Trevor's frustration had spilled over into physical aggression. Caroline admitted she had canceled a prior outing with Sam because of a black eye Trevor had given her. Her skin, she noted bitterly, made bruises slow to heal and hard to hide. Sam's resolve cracked. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her. She turned to face him, allowing the embrace for a moment before stepping back and pulling her top down. He thanked her for trusting him with such a vulnerable truth. And as they said goodbye, she kissed him again, a kiss that left him certain it was time to act. Sam's divorce was finalized with little drama, marked by irreconcilable differences. Dylan had requested a final meeting to apologize once more, but her words changed nothing. 2 weeks later, Sam was officially free. Now, his focus turned to Trevor. He visited a suburban shopping center and found an ad on a bulletin board for a used pickup truck. The seller, needing to move overseas, was unloading the truck and other household items quickly. The vehicle was old, dented, and battered, but functional, perfect for Sam's purposes. He paid in cash, obtained the title, and burned it that same evening. The following day, he took the truck off-road in a local park, covering it in mud to disguise its recent purchase. Satisfied, he moved on to the next step. Sam drove far into the countryside, revisiting a desolate area he remembered hunting in with his father as a child. The landscape was as bleak as he recalled. Abandoned coal mines, mounds of tailings, and illegally dumped trash scattered across the land. The neglect of decades remained untouched. Smiling grimly, he confirmed it was exactly the setting he needed. Returning home after dark, Sam parked the truck in his garage and loaded it with the dismantled parts of a large bed. He drove back to the mining site, arriving under cover of night. Using discarded wood and crates from the site, He constructed a makeshift platform and reassembled the bed on top of it. The task was effortless. He had practiced assembling and disassembling the bed in his garage in total darkness. With everything in place, Sam doused the structure in gasoline and struck a kitchen match, igniting it. Flames consumed the bed, casting flickering light across the barren landscape. It was a modern makeshift version of a Viking funeral, marking the symbolic end of a chapter in his life. Sam watched as the fire raged, then turned and drove away, leaving the smoldering remains behind. Trevor wasn't exactly acting like a stoic hero. He was very much alive when it began. Sam had ensured he wasn't hurt any more than necessary to bring him to this moment. From experience, Sam knew that overwhelming someone too early dulled their awareness, and he wanted Trevor fully conscious of the consequences of his actions. To Sam, Trevor wasn't just another person who had made mistakes. He was a symbol of harm, someone who had shattered families, taken advantage of trust, and left lasting scars. Trevor's actions had destroyed Sam's marriage, hurt Caroline, and caused pain to others. For Sam, one thing was clear. Trevor's behavior had to be confronted and stopped. Trevor's screams echoed for 11 minutes. When silence finally fell, Sam used Trevor's phone to call in an anonymous tip to the local sheriff's office, wiped the device clean, and tossed it onto the burning pyre. The task was complete. Sam didn't feel an ounce of guilt. He had done worse to better men during his military service. Trevor, in comparison, deserved every second of it. Driving south in the battered pickup truck he had acquired for this purpose, Sam continued his plan. He traveled for hours until he reached a dingy strip mall with a 24-hour diner. After fueling up at a nearby Citgo, he parked the truck conspicuously and left the key in the ignition. He deliberately walked past a group of rowdy young men who loitered near the diner, casually bumping one and provoking a glare. But Sam's commanding presence dissuaded them from reacting. After a slice of pie and coffee, he exited the diner to find the truck predictably gone. He walked a mile to a bus depot, caught a ride home, and slept peacefully the entire way. In the days that followed, investigators identified Trevor's remains. The unusual circumstances surrounding his death drew significant attention, leading detectives to delve into his life. Their investigation revealed connections to Dylan, tracing back to the high school reunion. They compiled a hefty file on Trevor, and Sam inevitably became a person of interest. His service record, though partially redacted, hinted at his expertise in unconventional warfare, making him a compelling figure for the detectives. Detective Sergeant Bishop questioned Sam extensively. Bishop probed why Sam, as the president of his company, had personally traveled to a client's site on the same day Trevor met his end. Sam explained that the client, a close friend and a former commanding officer, had specifically requested his expertise. When asked about his military record, including his Silver Star commendation, Sam deflected, pointing out its irrelevance to the investigation. Bishop pressed further, recounting Sam's actions during a mission where he had single-handedly eliminated 43 hostiles to save his injured teammates. Sam's responses were calm and measured, his demeanor unwavering. The detective shifted focus to the new bed Sam had purchased shortly before Trevor's death. Bishop asked what had happened to the old one, and Sam claimed he had donated it to Goodwill, providing a receipt to back his story. Though Goodwill confirmed the donation, the bed's trail ended there, as it had been sold for cash. The lead fizzled, leaving detectives with a multitude of other potential suspects to explore. During the weeks following Trevor's demise, Sam maintained his routine while the investigation unfolded. Caroline called 3 months after Trevor's funeral, just a week after Sam's divorce was finalized. Her timing didn't surprise him. Their earlier conversations had hinted at her awareness of certain events. Still, Sam wondered what she wanted. Was it blackmail? Exposure? He knew it was one thing to wish someone dead, but quite another to face the grim reality of that wish being fulfilled. When they spoke, Caroline revealed her intentions. Blackmail of a sort. She demanded his presence, but not for money or secrets. Instead, she insisted he come over for a home-cooked dinner. Sam couldn't help but laugh. The widow Brooks wasn't naive, nor was she frightened of him. She seemed to understand exactly what he had done and why, and she wanted to see him anyway. The evening was a lively, chaotic affair as Caroline's 2 children warmed up to their new Uncle Sam. Initially, they were wary of him, intimidated by his towering height and unfamiliar presence. Their confusion lingered as they tried to understand why their father was gone. Caroline's hesitant explanation, that he was in heaven, lacked conviction, leaving them puzzled and unsure. Realizing his stature was part of the issue, Sam dropped to the floor to their level. The kids, Charlie and Nancy, both inheriting their mother's coloring, were thrilled to suddenly loom over him. Before long, they were climbing all over him, their fear dissipating with every giggle. By the time he stood up, they were completely at ease. After dinner, Sam joined Caroline to drop the kids off at Mrs. Jones's house for a sleepover. On the way back, he jokingly asked if he'd be having a sleepover too. Caroline shot him a teasing smirk, her humor sharp as ever. She warned him to behave lest he find himself promptly escorted back to his car, banned from returning. Back at her house, Caroline made a half-joking confession about her nervousness. She mentioned hearing a rumor that the bogeyman who took Trevor might be nearby. When Sam asked where she'd heard that, she smirked and admitted it was from the voices in her head. They laughed, but the undertone of truth was clear. Trevor's absence still loomed large. Months later, Caroline posed a direct question. When was Sam planning to propose? Her casual demeanor couldn't disguise the weight of the inquiry. Sam, however, grew serious, voicing concerns about the scrutiny their marriage might attract from detectives. Caroline dismissed the worries confidently, assuring him that no evidence could ever tie him to Trevor's death. They had never openly discussed what had happened, but her implicit understanding of the situation was evident. Sam hesitated, asking if she could ever feel completely safe with him, if there would always be a part of her that feared him. Caroline cupped his face and looked directly into his eyes. With conviction, she reassured him that she trusted him entirely, believed in his moral compass, and would never be afraid of him. Her confidence extended to her children, whom she believed would feel just as safe with him. Sam, deeply moved, tried to address her lingering trust issues after Trevor, but she interrupted, reminding him that he had already placed his trust, and potentially his freedom, in her hands. That act of trust, coupled with her love for him, erased any doubts she had. Caroline pressed him again, playfully demanding a proper proposal. Sam, caught up in her charm, knelt down on one knee. She laughed, warning him that a proposal wouldn't count without a ring. Sam pretended to fumble through his pockets before producing one, its delicate band dwarfed in his large hand. Caroline inspected it skeptically, jokingly accusing him of recycling Dylan's old ring. Sam assured her it was new, humorously claiming he'd chosen it over a basket of tomatoes at a roadside stand. Caroline gave in, throwing herself into his arms with a joyful squeal. Sam held her tightly, marveling at how far they had come. When she teased him about whether this was just his way of repaying her for saving her from Alistair, she grinned, hinting that her gratitude would come later. As expected, their marriage stirred the waters. Investigators revisited Trevor's case, retracing old leads. The renewed interest was short-lived, though, and the case was soon shelved indefinitely. Detective Sergeant Bishop visited Sam one last time, his tone heavier than before. Over a quiet conversation on the patio, Bishop revealed a personal connection to the case. Trevor had victimized his daughter-in-law, Rebecca. She and Bishop's son, Charlie, had been part of Sam and Caroline's high school class, a reminder of Trevor's predatory nature. Bishop recounted Rebecca's difficult experience, detailing how Trevor had taken advantage of her vulnerability as a police officer's wife. He had coerced her into an inappropriate relationship and used compromising photos to control her. To make matters even harder, Trevor's actions had drawn others into the situation, intensifying her distress. Bishop's voice trembled with a mix of anger and sorrow as he explained how his family was striving to heal, seeking support through counseling, and working to rebuild their lives. Sam listened, his respect for Bishop deepening. He recognized the devastation Trevor had caused, not just to his own life, but to countless others. As the conversation ended, Sam couldn't help but reflect on how far he and Caroline had come, and the strength they'd need to face the future together. Warren sat silently for a moment, his eyes fixed on his tightly clenched fists. The weight of his words seemed almost too heavy to voice, but eventually, he began. Charlie came home after his shift to find Rebecca on the bathroom floor. Her wrists were slashed. It was right after one of those nights. His voice cracked, but he forced himself to continue. They saved her with a transfusion, physically at least. But mentally, she was gone, somewhere far away. We didn't know how bad things were until that anonymous tip came through. Once Trevor's body was discovered, we started digging deeper. But Rebecca, she wouldn't tell us anything. Letting out a deep sigh, Warren shook his head. Trevor had a habit of running his mouth, he said bitterly. And when we leaned on his accomplices, they gave up everything. Sam listened quietly, absorbing every word as Warren laid out the grim details. After Charlie told Rebecca that Trevor was dead, it was like a switch flipped. She started responding to treatment, slowly, but she's coming back. A few days ago, we sent Charlie out of town on a case, just to keep him away while we made our move. While he was gone, we arrested the two other men involved. If Charlie had known, I'm sure he'd have gone after them himself, tool in hand. That's not something we could allow. Warren's expression hardened briefly before a flicker of satisfaction crossed his face. Those two are facing more charges than they'll know what to do with. The evidence is solid. They'll be locked away for a long time. And Rebecca? She's healing. The doctors think she'll be ready to come home soon. Sam gave a slight nod, his voice calm but sincere. That's good to hear, Warren. For her and for Charlie, they deserve that. Warren hesitated, his tone softening as he added, There's something else I need to tell you. Charlie wants to reach out to you, but he's ashamed. He was one of the kids who jumped you back in high school, that fight that got you suspended. It's been eating at him, especially now, knowing everything you've done. A faint smile crossed Sam's lips. That's all in the past. What matters is the man he is today. If he wants to talk, I'd be happy to see him. And Rebecca too, when she's ready. Warren stood, signaling the end of their conversation, but he lingered for a moment. I thought you'd like to know that the case is officially closed. You don't have to worry about it resurfacing. As long as I have a say, it's staying that way. He extended a hand and Sam shook it firmly. Thanks, Warren, Sam said, his voice steady. Warren gave a faint nod, his words final but sincere. No, Sam, thank you. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving Sam to process the quiet resolve of the moment.